Hi, I'm Rose. I studied Writing and Rhetoric, Book 4, and this is my vituperation. The landmine, a world-exploding weapon. The torpedo is like the guillotine, blowing off limbs and tearing apart hearts and countries. Indeed, the landmine is a merciless and brutal weapon that destroyed countless Union and Confederate soldiers and wounded people for life. Even as a new invention, the bomb killed without setback. And without any warning, instilled uncompromised fear in the hearts of the Union and Confederate soldiers. In the later years of the Civil War, the disastrous torpedo, otherwise known as the landmine, was invented by a Confederate brigadier general named Gabriel Rains. The landmine was first planted in the siege of Yorktown, Virginia, in the year 1862 for the cause of protecting the Southern land and people. After the Confederacy found the explosive weapons so useful in battle by destroying the Union and slowing them down, Rains commanded they plant more bombs down south and some up north too. As time went on and the war continued with more casualties, Rains developed an underwater torpedo. However, the danger that came with making bombs was that one could be set off by their own army instead of the Union's. This exact incident happened to the submarine Hunley, which killed the Confederate soldiers when they sent out a waterproof torpedo attacking the Union. Overall, the cause for which the explosives were made was accomplished in the mind of the Confederates, but to the death and wounding of an unnecessary amount of lives. The landmine is a murderous and cowardly weapon because it allowed the Confederates to unashamedly run away while satisfying themselves in watching their own countrymen be blown to pieces. One might say that the bomb was helpful in creating peace in America. But truly, the terrible weapon only created pain through Pyrrhic victories and the loss of unprotected men. It was made with a barrel full of shrapnel, of glass or metal, and gunpowder, so that when it was triggered, it would explode and rip the flesh off of the soldier on top of it. To begin with, the landmine was triggered by one's foot landing on top of the soil the landmine was buried beneath. After being triggered once, it cannot be triggered again. But after its initial explosion, it leaves damage to the area, person, and any mode of transportation in an army, whether the North or the South happens to be riding in, just as much as a second explosion would. One must ask, is it right to harm others on the basis of your own cowardice? Is life so worthless that it should be thrown away because of your own false sense of heroism? The answer is no. It is never right to kill one's own countrymen, one's own neighbors, because they believe in a world without war and the end of slavery. The life-altering torpedo, through killing or impairing so unexpectedly and detrimentally, accomplished nothing but pain and misery, something that without God's good hand, no one can reverse. From the beginning, the bomb was used unfairly to promote discrimination and prejudice of people that were not European Americans. It ended in the division of all people. For example, Gabriel Rains, when working in the Second Seminole War, killed and wounded several unknowing Indians who were in the process of attacking an area near Fort King by planting an unexpected bomb under a blanket. This act of war, where the Indians had no time to respond or even to protect themselves, was selfish, poltroon, and unfair. To fight a war is to understand that the ultimate goal is peace and building a better world, not the lives of lives, not the power to rule over others, nor continuing in the former life of sin and destruction. Furthering this hatred, another example of Gabriel Rains' bombs separating the nation's peace was recorded by Union General William T. Sherman. He saw the carnage and held and heard of the shells buried in the ground that divided his countrymen so terribly and wrote, "This was not war, but murder," and it made me very angry. Because the war was sanctioned and the murderous landmine was not, General Sherman had every right to say this. While it may be necessary to defend your armory by the use of explosives or guns, the disrupting and crippling torpedo did unneeded damage in the years it was used, and still today, it takes numerous lives. In contrast, hands-on combat or the use of swords and knives would seem valiant and merciful, rather than the use of landmines or bombs, because it allows notice before impact and uses a brief effort to fight face to face. If one is to fight, let it be with strength and determination, not cowardice. The Confederates used the landmine as a way to escape or an organized retreat, meaning they themselves became timid in the face of hands-on fighting. Hands-on fighting using knives is a more courageous action and weapon because the fight could go either way. One dies violently and proud of their life, or their opponent dies and is buried semi-respectfully on the battlefield. The knife or sword is also a more merciful weapon because if one happens to be stabbed, death comes quickly either from the loss of blood or the opponent finishing off the job. The landmine, however, leaves several people with low bodily injuries within a 100-meter radius or causes immediate death. If not dealt with immediately, meaning through amputations, the injuries could easily develop into infections or later death. Overall, the use of landmines is uncaring, unjust, and a foolhardy weapon. Whereas the blade is merciful, straightforward, and battle in hands-on combat is lighthearted, because despite the chances of fatality, the person risks their life for the better good. Altogether, the landmine is a terrible and violent weapon because it laid waste to America and killed and impaired a needless amount of soldiers. In the last years of the Civil War, these fatal bombs were used, but to no great success worth mentioning. When the Confederates used this explosive, they lost sight of what matters in war, to bring together both sides of the division, Union and Confederate. Still today, there are landmines laying around in war-torn areas underneath the ground, waiting for an innocent child or person to step on. Because of Gabriel Rain's invention, 13 people a day on average are killed. 84% of casualties are among citizens, and of that 84%, 37 civilians are children. This is a sad legacy to leave on a country, and those that are impacted daily by dormant landmines. So, if one intends to start a war, let it be to form peace, and remember that the casualties need not be larger than the cause.